Hello everyone and welcome back to another album review. In this video I'm going to review the split tribute to the films of Lucifer Valentine. This is a brand new release from the Harsh Noise Movement Records, a split of 6 different artists in an album dedicated to the films of Lucifer Valentine. Now, if you are unaware who Lucifer Valentine is, he's the director for some of the most notorious and most messed up films to be ever made. He is mostly known for the Vomit Core trilogy with the films Slaughtered Vomit Dolls, ReGOREgitated Sacrifice, and Slow Torture Puke Chamber. 3 mostly short artsy films with a lot of heavy editing and music manipulations. The content of those films is extremely filthy and disgusting in its nature. For the most part, they're straight up snuff porn and sadistic horror films, mostly involving a lot of puking and, at some cases, some paranormal elements of Satanism, offering some of the most gruesome, some of the most disturbing, and some of the most messed up moments I've ever seen in a film ever. Whether I like those films or not, that's a totally different story. However, if you want me to review and talk about those films, please let me know down in the comments and I would gladly make a video talking about the films of Lucifer Valentine if that's something you would be interested in seeing. For films that are so disturbing in nature, it's only appropriate for the music to be harsh noise oriented. And Harsh Noise Movement has done this thing in the past. Instead, one of his first releases was back in 2016 when he released the soundtrack album dedicated to the film Nikudaruma, a film that I have also seen, and it's definitely one of the most disturbing snuff porn films to be ever made. And this is a pretty interesting album, by the way. I suggest you to go and check it out. Now, Harsh Noise Movement is a UK musician that mostly goes to the sound of Harsh Noise Wall, a sort of sound that I'm not that much of a huge fan of. Out of the whole subgenre of harsh noise music, Harsh Noise Wall is the one that I still cannot manage to get the appeal of it. When it comes to noise music, I'm mostly into it for the variety or the unpredictable elements, the free improvised stuff. Harsh Noise Wall is mostly, like it says, wall or walls of noise that mostly consist to the same sound without having some sort of alteration or something different to it. And I'm not that much of a fan of just sitting through a whole album with little to no progression to it. However, Harsh Noise Movement is one of those artists that I've discovered to the genre that I think that some of his works are actually quite interesting. Mostly I see his sound going into a more of a harsh wall-ish sound. Like, there are some alterations here and there, it's not just always the same thing over and over again. His discography can be hit or miss, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's a bit understandable because we're talking about a massive discography. He just started releasing music from back in 2015 or 2016, and since that point he has done over 100 albums. At this point he's going to surpass Merzbow in album releases if he's going to keep going on like this. Out of all these releases, Harsh Noise Movement is known for making numerous different splits with so many different artists. This one is a split containing 6 different artists, and Harsh Noise Movement is the only one I was actually aware of. I don't know any of the other names, and the artists we have over here are Bloody Shiv, Hiroshi Hasegawa, Horrible Porn, Ghostskull, and Tab In/Tab Out. And each one of these tracks has as a title the film title from the 6 films Lucifer Valentine has done so far. And I was actually not that aware of those 3 films from Lucifer Valentine after the Vomit Core trilogy, and I just watched all 3 of them one after the next yesterday. And Oh boy, I'm traumatized now. We have 6 different artists, each one going into his own direction, having his own form of sound, and as a result we have 6 tracks that respectfully go into lots of different directions, and this makes an album that is varied, and it's nice to see from every one of these artists giving his own perspective, just capturing in their own way the sickening mentality of those films. The album itself is massive, it's over 80 minutes long, and the tracks themselves mostly go for about 15 minutes. As far as the album goes, for harsh noise and harsh noise wall standards, I think there are some nice ideas here and there, but the main issue I find with this album is that I feel that it sounds a bit lazy. There are some moments where the sounds they've used, they don't feel all that focused or giving that much of an attention to them. I like how the album is really loud. Okay, we're talking about an extremely loud album, but some of the sounds they've used in some of the occasions, I'm pretty sure that it could have been done a better job. I don't know if this thing just sounds rushed or just that there was not that much that each one of those artists individually wanted to add to their own songs. For example, Harsh Noise Movement actually made my least favorite track over here. It's about the same thing for 13 minutes and 20 seconds, going to do the more harsh noise wall kind of things. And I don't necessarily have an issue with this, but even the texture of this thing, even the sound he used on this track, it's not that much interesting or compelling to me, because it mostly feels like he just pressed one of the lowest keys in a synth sound and he just put a lot of distortion to it and he called it a day. Even if that's not the case, which it probably isn't, I still just didn't feel that song all that much. That's just it. Now, Bloody Shiv made a really interesting track in my opinion. I like the loop to this thing, I like that it has this weird kick, this weird punch to it, and I like that he just uses this looped sample of someone talking over and over again, going for about 9.5 minutes. But even that, in my opinion, he could have used something more, I don't know, something a bit more variety to it rather than just being the same thing for about 9 minutes. And even the sounds, the basic kick, it just feels a bit plastic. Other than that though, it's definitely a nice song. Hiroshi Hasegawa made one of the more free improvised and one of the more varied tracks out of this album, and same with Horrible Porn, which what he did with this track, what he presented, was actually very interesting. And it's really heavy, really punching, he just constantly manipulates this song. It doesn't necessarily have that much to it that would really intrigue me, but I like how Horrible Porn and Hiroshi Hasegawa go into a bit of more variance, having a bit more different, a bit more free improvised. Then another one of my favorite moments is the track from Ghostskull. It's the most quiet out of the cuts and it serves for a really eerie and unsettling atmosphere. It's definitely, in my opinion, the most unsettling track out of the album. I like the heavily distorted textures to it, and I like how it sort of goes to this direction with this sort of background like synth, just giving this airy atmosphere. It's a bit repetitive, going for 15 minutes long, there's not that much variation to it, but I like the way he presented this whole song. Then Turbines Last About ends the album with a more harsh noise wall cut. It's a heavily intense cut, but it's another one of those where I don't really enjoy it all that much. I feel it's quite repetitive for 15 minutes, and once again, the sound of this thing, despite its intensity, it doesn't sound all that compelling or all that interesting. Now, other than that, for what we have here is a quite interesting album. In my opinion, it could have been better. At points, it sounds really repetitive, and some of the sounds, some of the textures could be approached in a better fashion, giving something more unique and more dynamic to it. For what it is though, we have a quite solid album which managed to grab my attention out of everything Harsh Noise Movement has uploaded in his Bandcamp due to the content of this album, since I am aware of the films of Lucifer Valentine, and now that I have seen all of them, that was definitely a release that intrigued me out of the plethora of albums Harsh Noise Movement has released. Definitely not one of my favorite harsh noise projects of this year, but it's still an interesting one that I do suggest to you if you are fans of harsh noise, and even if you're into harsh noise wall, just go and give it a listen. Even if you don't know the films, you can still enjoy the album. It's not like it constantly takes samples out of the movies. The album is on Bandcamp for free and you can name your price, you know the drill if you're using Bandcamp. Go and give this one a shot. It's a release that I found interesting. In my opinion, it could have been done a bit better, but it's still not a bad album from Harsh Noise Movement and all the other artists that were presented on this whole album. I'm going to give this split a 6- out of 10. What's your opinion on this album? Like it, dislike it, why, and what do you want me to review next time? Let me know down in the comments. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, subscribe for more content like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Goodbye.